Good afternoon and welcome to the Home Call Carpets Community Stadium here in Burgess Hill for edition 2 of Hillians Talk. Today we are in the gubbins of the clubhouse ahead of a really exciting match against Three Bridges at 3 o'clock. But we've got a couple of spare hours and today we've got a really good, really famous guest, a star for you today, and we're looking forward to chatting to him, Mr. Jay Lovett, one of our managers. We've also got my co-presenter Jack Nowdry with us.
Hello everyone. And
also I want to introduce you to Lyndon Humphrey, who is our tech man and editor, and without him we'd be sunk in the water.
Well, I'm sure you'd be all right without me.
Producer extraordinaire.
Yeah, let's go. Supreme Overlord?
Yes, that's it. Supreme
the boy is a wizard.
I'll take that. Thank you very much.
Right. Jay, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Thank you very much for coming in this morning or this afternoon. It's about midday, isn't it? I know you've got to get off and go and speak to the lads at some point, but we just wanted to ask you a few questions. I know that Jack's got some bits and pieces to you. For me personally, I just wanted to go back to your playing career. Now, this isn't like the big red book that we open up. This is your life. But you were born in 1978, so it makes you 47.
Yeah, it does. Thank you for reminding me of that one. Yeah.
You can't be outing him like that.
Never coming
That's
on. That's a great start, isn't it?
He's never
again.
Yeah.
No.
Born in Brighton. You went to Dorothy Stringer.
That's right. Yeah.
Okay. What was your first interaction with football? I'm guessing it was. I'm guessing it was school. I could be wrong. It runs through your veins, football, doesn't it?
It's a family thing, and obviously my dad was a massive football fan. But I think you said, where did it stem from? When I was younger, I was one of them that would probably run out into a field and kick a ball around and that. But I can remember the first day I got involved in football, and I was never wanting to play for a club. I don't think I'd ever approached my dad and said I need to join a team or anything like that. It literally was. I remember sitting in my house in Hollandbury at the time, and one of my friends from school, his dad turned up, and he'd just taken over Hollandbury Hawks under, I think it must have been under 9s, under 8s, and that was actually Darren Freeman's dad.
Oh, okay.
And I was at school with his brother Scott, and he set a team up, and he come round, and I remember him knocking on the door. I didn't know what the conversation went like with my dad, and the next thing I knew, my dad sort of gone out and brought me some boots and some shin pads, and then I was playing on the weekend, sort of the following week. So
wow. Okay.
Yeah, it was sort of like, I wouldn't say it was thrown upon me because I'd always enjoyed kicking it around and stuff like that. But I had at that time, I think obviously being very young as well, had no intention of actually playing for a team. And I think kids these days are much different to what we were back then. And yeah, I played a year above myself, under 9s at Hollandbury Hawks, on a place called the Moon. They called it out there by Lynchy Close. And that was my first introduction. So I'd done 2 years of under 9s because I went back down to my own age group after that.
Right, I see. Okay, well, I mean, obviously since then it's never left you, has it? We'll go through a few bits and pieces. In 1998, you were playing for Crawley Town at the time, and there was an approach from Brentford, and they paid allegedly 60,000 for your services. I wonder if you could just tell us what it was like being a young professional football player playing for such a brilliant club as Brentford at the time. Yeah,
it's obviously it was my whole dream to be a professional footballer. As you said, from those young ages, I think growing up, I think it was always something that I'd love to have done, always wanted to do. On top of any list of any sort of career move, and yeah, luckily enough, I'd been around sort of different places before that. Been down at Plymouth before that as an apprentice, and then I come back from there. Well, I went over to the States for a little bit to try and go to US trials over there, and then come back, and I finished the season at Saltdean, and then the year I finished the season at Saltdean, Crawley then come in for me, and then as you said, 98, I think it was, very good with your dates. Yeah. Then I had a couple of seasons at Crawley under Billy Smith, and it was a strange one. I knew I was playing well, and I was raising sort of a bit of attention from other people, I think. And I remember the day that Billy Smith sat me in my car and told me that Brentford sort of have come in for me, and I turned up for training, and Billy went, "Oh, don't get out of the car, Jay. I need to have a chat with you." And I was like, "Oh, here we go. He's going to drop me for the weekend." That's literally what I thought. So he just sat in the car. He got in the passenger side, shut the door, and just said, "Yeah, I've got some news for you." I was like, "All right, here we go." And he went, "We've got 2 offers for you." He said, "Brentford have put a bid in, which we've accepted. So you could go there if you want to, or Portsmouth want to take you for a 2-week trial, and they're off to Australia, and they potentially might take you." He said, "But if you want my advice," he said, "you've got the contract offer here now. If you want it," he said, "and as soon as I get out of your car, I'll give Ron Nodes a call, and he'll be down here within half an hour and sign you." And it was the most surreal sort of conversation I think I've ever had. And it sort of took a long while to sort of sink in, but. Yeah, within half an hour, Ron Nose turned up in his Bentley RM1 on his number plate, and sat me in the boardroom, and literally just said to me, he goes, "I've heard good things about you. We've watched you. You played against us pre-season, done really well." He said, "Do you want to be a professional footballer?" I said, "Yeah, definitely." He said, "Okay." He said, "How much do you want?" And I was just like what? And so I didn't have a clue what to say. So in the end, he just offered me like a contract.
Yeah.
It literally got a blank piece of A4 paper out and wrote, "First year give it this, second year give it this, third year give it this. You can sign for me for 3 years." And he said, "And if you do sign it, you sign this bit of paper here, and then we sort out the finer details later on." He said, "And I'll see you at training. When can you get here?"
Wow.
As in, like, when can you leave the job that you're doing now and then come and work, come and play for us? I said, I'll be there next week." He went, "Okay, brilliant." And that was it. On the Monday, I just sort of turned up at training.
Wow.
But
what a fantastic story that is.
Yeah, it's a bit of it was a shock to the system at the time, but I couldn't wait for the meeting to finish just to phone my mum and dad up straight afterwards and go, "Look, you never guess what's just happened." Yeah.
That sounds great. And going forward from that, we've obviously hear a lot of stories from young professionals going through that particular stage in their career. Well, was it exciting? I mean, training with that particular squad, because they were in the second division that time, so they were playing some huge, great games, weren't they?
Yeah, they were League One, and they just got promoted, I think, from, as you said, from the second division that year. And it was a big club with big plans at the time. And, when we were there, I think the first season we sort of finished about mid-table, and the year after that we got into the playoffs. But, when I first went there, I thought I was good. And then when you go into the pro level, it's another level. And that then sort of hit me. And it took me a while to adjust. So I signed it in the summer. I'd done all pre-season with them, but I didn't make my debut till October of that season. And I remember coming down for breakfast. We're away to Port Vale, coming down to breakfast, and I've been playing really well in the reserve, so I've sort of just acclimatised a little bit to it. And we're literally at breakfast the day before the game, and Ron Rose just pulled me, "Jay, come here." I was like, "Okay." He went, "Right, don't shit yourself, but you're starting today." And that's exactly how he introduced me to let me know that I was going to be starting. Yeah. So I was like, "No, looking forward to it." And then obviously shit myself and walked off to back to my sort of hotel room. But yeah, very excited, and I think we drew 2-2 that game. I think it was, and I set up the second goal, so that sort of made
your day, didn't it?
Made my season, yeah.
Of course, yeah. What is it like playing in a stadium like Griffin Park? I mean, I know it's not there anymore, but great atmosphere, wasn't there?
Griffin Park's brilliant, yeah. As I think everyone knows, it's what it's known for is a ground with a pub on every corner of it, and it was a brilliant sort of stadium. It was a brilliant club, very family orientated club, well supported. So yeah, I loved it there and settled in quite nicely there.
Of course, yeah. Have you have any questions on Jay's playing career?
I suppose just to sort of stick to the Brentford story, was this sort of early 20s? Was this when you were at Brentford? Was this? Or
I was 20. Yeah,
20, yeah.
I think I just turned 20 that year, and so yeah, I literally sort of there for the first 2 years, and then I signed another contract. So I was there. I think it was like 4 years overall, or 3 and a bit. And then went out on loan a couple of times while I was there to like Hereford and to Gravesend and Northfleet, now Ebbsfleet, obviously.
Yeah.
That shows how long ago it was now, doesn't it?
Exactly.
But yeah, it's I had great fond memories playing for them, and it was a lovely club, and I stayed friends with a lot of the players that were there from that squad.
You don't normally talk to a person who's played professional football,
No.
so thanks very much for that insight there. It was really good. But then you came back to Sussex, forgive me if I'm wrong, but you came into a love affair with Eastbourne Borough, and you played there quite a few seasons in the National League.
That's right. Yeah. Well, it was. We got promoted into the National League. So we started off in the Conference South. And that's when the league just sort of reformed itself, really, because it was Dr. Martin's Premier, wasn't it, for a little bit, and then went to Conference North and South. Yeah. I'd played at Lewis just before that as well, so I had a couple of years there where we've been promoted from like the equivalent of sort of step 4 to step 3, and then they obviously went up to step 2 as well. But then I moved across to Eastbourne and had 4 years at Eastbourne.
Yeah.
Really good years. Started off in the Conference South. Just finished outside the playoffs, I think, in that first year. The second year, we had a good run in with Lewis, the top 2 teams for a long time. We were unbeaten until, I think, New Year's Day we played them, and they beat us 2-0 at their place, or Boxing Day, and then we beat them back at our place on New Year's Day. I think that's right, anyway. But both teams got promoted at the end of the season and into the conference.
Wow. And I know that we've got 2 Sussex teams right at this moment who are battling to get into that division. Maybe you can tell us what it's like travelling around the country at that level. I'm guessing it's quite tough.
Yeah, it is. But I think more teams if you take the Conference North and South now, you've got even teams at that level now sort of pretty much going full time.
Yeah.
Back when we were playing then, there was no full time. That every now and then someone might throw an extra training session on, so like a Monday. But yeah, we were part-time, so we were working all the players were working Monday to Friday. And then if you had, say for instance, I remember we had one FA Cup game away to Barrow, and we travelled up there on a Tuesday night. The game went into extra time. We lost 3-1, which didn't help at all. It's always more fun travel home when you've won the game. But yeah, we lost 3-1 in extra time. I don't think some of the boys got back till about 4 a.m. So
you're kidding me. You came back on the night.
Yeah, come back on the night. Yeah, no, it was no overnight stays at that point either. No. It was literally set off early in the morning and come back late at night, and then crack on with the day's work the next day. So I know some boys sort of didn't bother going home because by the time they got back to Brighton, sort of way, then there was another hour to Eastbourne, and some of the boys worked in Brighton. So what they did is they drove their car to the place of work and slept in their car, then went to work the next day, and obviously come home after that probably for a good sleep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's quite amazing, isn't it?
It is.
All these things that used to happen like that.
But I think that's part of the fun though. When you're in a good team and a team's a good bunch of mates, I think travelling can become sort of tedious, but it's the memories that you make and the friends that you make from those times as well. And coach journeys sort of really do bring those things together.
Yeah, of course. Going forward, I think Jack's got some questions for you. We're going into management now.
Okay.
If that's okay.
Yeah, don't bother anyone else from playing anymore.
No. We will come back to a couple of those bits. But Jack.
Yeah, just obviously you sort of touched on there the playing career. Obviously, sort of finished up. And you're obviously back home, back in and around Sussex, and then I suppose sort of right from the early on, how early was it that you decided that when you were coming to the end of your playing career that you wanted to move into management? Was that something you always wanted to do? Was that, did you just sort of fall into it at a club? What was the sort of start of that?
I think I always knew that I wanted to stay within football. And I think for a couple of reasons. One, I really enjoyed the coaching, and football's what I know and what I know best. And also think through sort of my younger years, I was never really at a pro club, then went into pro football late. The things that I learnt while I was in pro football and obviously playing many non-league games, I just felt that I could relate to a lot of people who were trying to do the same sort of dream. And I thought I'd be quite a good sort of person or to give advice for people doing it or the mistakes I've made that I could help someone else up with and make sure they don't make the same mistakes and probably have a bit of a clearer path or what they needed to do to get themselves on the right path. So I knew quite early. My first sort of coaching job, funny enough, was one of the coaches at Eastbourne Borough. He had a coaching company called SAFA, Southern Association Football Academy, Jim Coulson. He gave me my first ever coaching job, and I used to go up, I think it was like a Monday evening. It was just at Eastbourne Sports Park, and I used to coach down there. And then obviously, because that was a bit of a trek, then I got involved in community football at Brighton. And then done sort of development areas in Brighton and in Mid-Sussex, and then sort of concentrate on Mid-Sussex a little bit. And then from there, sort of just put myself through my coaching badges while I was doing that. and then sort of work my way up to eventually. I think when you first start coaching, it's one of the hardest jobs to get a job full time in. So you're doing a bit here, there, and everywhere, sort of thing. And I was doing sort of 3 or 4 different coaching jobs before you get a chance to really do your first full time role.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely. And then sort of moving into
It's interesting.
the sort of management of the non-league scene. I think it was South Park, wasn't it? Your first sort of management, obviously before you come here. That's right, isn't it?
That's right. Yeah. No, I went to South Park. They're lovely club. Some great guys that run it down there, and they ran the club themselves as well beforehand. And there's a very sort of community sort of club down there as well. But yeah, took a gamble on me and gave me my first sort of chance. I remember one of the questions was, why are you coming into management now? Why haven't you done it before? I was luckily quite injury free when I played, so I played to quite an old age in terms of football. And I think I finished my last sort of competitive game when I was like 40 years old. So I got a job down there. I walked into sort of Mission Impossible, as it were, when I took over there. They were on something like 4 points at the back end of November.
Right.
And
I do remember this story.
yeah,
I do remember this story.
back end of November, and they had so many players signed on for them as well, and didn't really recognise many of them. They obviously weren't doing a great job at the time, so it was like a completely, sort of rebuild. Luckily, at the time, I was also Sussex Under-18s manager, and I took a lot of Sussex youngsters and played them at step 4 and gave them a chance. So some of those boys would have been on, at Eastbourne Borough, like Harry Pollard's at the time that I brought in with us. Some boys would have been on a lot of Worthing's books, so like Hayden Skerry at the time, took him off of them. And I got a good group of Sussex boys, and mixed with a few sort of London boys and other boys that we had over there, and we just formed a team that was just a workaholic team. And we sort of dug in deep, and the first 5 games we probably lost the first 5 games, but eventually sort of we drew one, and then we won one, and then we've won 4 on spin now, and it sort of we climbed ourselves out. And the last day of the season we played Waltham Abbey, and we beat them 3-2, and we stayed up on the last day of the season. But we jumped like 3 places outside the relegation zone at the end of that game, because our results went our way. So that was, we always said like Mission Impossible completed it with that one, because that was really backs against the wall. But I learnt a hell of a lot in my first ever managerial role, thrown him right in the deep end in a club that we need to sort of get themselves out the deep, really.
Absolutely. And
can I just ask a question on that? Losing those first 5 games on the trot, that must have been quite difficult to keep picking yourself up. But you had to do it as the manager, didn't you? I don't suppose you could let the players just drift at that point. I suppose you had to keep going.
Yeah, you can't get down about it, because I knew the risks of the role and the position they were in before I took the job.
Right. Okay.
So I can't say, you just thrown it on me. I knew it, and I thought, well, if I'm going to be all right at this job, I need to get myself out of it. And if I don't do it in the first game, I'll do it in the second. And we got to the 5th, and then all of a sudden the 6th game it clicked, and we done well with it.
So tell me, celebrations on that last day when you won 3-2 must have been pretty immense.
Yeah, absolutely brilliant. And I remember my wife bought
me... Was it a home game or an away game?
It was away to Waltham Abbey, yeah.
Right.
And I actually had to play in that game as well.
Did you?
Wow.
Yeah, which
there you go.
I hadn't played all season.
Right.
And literally both my centre-halves got injured. So at that time, I'd always signed on, just say, like, if ever needed a sub or someone didn't turn up, got stuck in traffic, I could put myself on the bench. And, I played centre-back with a centre midfielder. And Andy Herring, funny enough, who we had down here at Burgess Hill, broke his leg, didn't he?
Yeah.
And so, him and I played centre-half for each other, and we got through the game, and that was it. So that made it, and I couldn't walk for about 3 days afterwards.
Well, of course, yeah.
It was brilliant. I left Matt Bubb was with me as well.
Yeah.
So he's been by my side pretty much from the word go, and he managed the team on the side, done the substitutions and bits and pieces for us. So I left him in charge, and we just got him in the game, and that was a really good day, and we got it, and I'm sure we drank some champagne that day.
I can imagine.
I'm sure you did.
That's a really good end to that season, isn't it? Crikey, especially as your first one as well. You've kept them up. Did you stay the next season?
Yeah, I with them the next season. We had a really good pre-season. We kept a lot of the lads from the year before, added 1 or 2.
Yeah.
And we had a much better start. And I think we were sitting about 9th in the South Central League. And then that's when the Burgess Hill job come up. And then I contacted Burgess Hill to say, would you be interested? And I went, yep, definitely. And then I had the meeting and was appointed, yeah.
Did they have a 3G pitch?
Not when I was there.
It is now.
It is now, yeah.
Yeah, because we've been there a couple of times, haven't we, over the past? But
It's a really good setup.
Yeah.
Really good setup. I've got like new changing rooms. They've got a brand new 3G pitch. They've got a lovely bar, although the bar's not right next to the pitch. You sort of have to walk up the hill to it.
Right.
But it's a really good bar, yeah.
Yeah, I do remember.
And I just want to, now that we've gone through South Park, I was going to come on to obviously, your first time here. But there's a real sort of topic that I want to sort of just sort of finish this off with, really. No, I was going to sort of do it about, how sort of easy was it, or how much you wanted to come here first time round, because obviously I know it was one of your early managerial roles, but I actually want to sort of focus on the sort of latter part of your first time here, because obviously I think it's fair to say for everyone listening to the podcast who's a Burgess Hill fan, when you left first time round, when everything sort of happened, I think it's still a very contentious bone of discussion amongst fans about when you left. Was it the right decision from the people that made it? Was it the right time, and sort of everything like that? And now, obviously, back into the present day, obviously, start of the season, you sort of come back with Gary and did it. I want to really sort of focus on, purely just out of interest for myself, but I think it's a really good thing for the fans to hear. I don't put words in your mouth, but I'm sure from the first time you were here when you left, I'm sure it was probably a decision which stung, which probably wasn't a. Is that sort of fair to say? Was it a sort of contentious? You felt like you could have sort of carried on and done, turn things around.
Yeah, just speaking solely from my point of view.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, I think you described it quite nicely there. It was a decision that did sting from the time that I found out, and it felt that my journey was cut short a little bit. If I think that makes sense, because although we weren't in the relegation zone, we were hovering around it. We just had a really good win midweek against...
Very good win.
Yeah, local rival sort of thing. And I just felt like we just got ourselves back on track. And with the squad that we had, and it was a good squad, a really good squad, a good side. I think that side would have quite comfortably worked their way up the league. That's just obviously my opinion.
Yeah.
Whether it would happen or not,
no.
It's a different thing. One thing saying it and one thing doing
Absolutely,
it.
yeah.
But I do believe, and I back it, and just from my football experience, very limited in management then, but in playing side of it, I think that side was good enough to easily climb themselves up to sort of mid-table.
Absolutely.
So yeah, it was sort of business left unfinished, as it were. So yeah, but obviously things have turned around now, and here we are.
No, exactly, and that's sort of what I'm going to come on to. Really, that's.
Can I just butt in just for 1 second on
yeah.
Just before we go on to the current season, I just wanted to take you back to I've got it here somewhere. 2011. You've done a lot in your career. You went to Vietnam for a season. And how exciting was that as a manager? I think you were an assistant manager, Simon, weren't you?
That's right, yeah.
How was that whole experience?
An unbelievable experience, really.
Yeah.
I think it's important sometimes when coaches coach or managers manage. It's good to go to different places and see how things work and how different cultures work. And I've been lucky enough to sort of coach in sort of probably 3 different continents, really. Obviously over in Europe, I've been to like Denmark and stuff like that over here. Then I've been over to States coaching over there in Florida, and then obviously to Vietnam in Asia. So
this is a team, An Long, or Long An.
Yeah.
Which is about maybe 50 miles from Ho Chi Minh City, was it?
It is. It's the weird the way they did the name setups down there. So it's Long An is the area in Ho Chi Minh.
Ah, okay.
And Dong Tam is the name of the company that own the club.
Right.
Or sponsor the club. So for instance, it'd be like Colesberg, Liverpool. That's how you would say it. So Dong Tam they're a ceramics company.
Oh, okay.
The guy who owned it, very wealthy guy, and he was the chairman of the club Long An.
Wow. Okay.
So it was in the Vietnamese V League, which is their equivalent of the Premier League.
Yeah.
Obviously, the standards are very, very different, and the standard in the league is very, very different as well. You have like League 2 sort of standard players down to maybe county league players. The sort of the equivalent of sort of how varied it is within the squad.
Right.
And then the more big players that you have in it are normally your foreign players that you bring in. So you can have four foreign players that you can bring into the side.
Right.
You can play 3 of them at one time on the pitch, and 1 could be on the bench. But then if you sub 1 foreigner, you can bring the other foreigner on.
Right, I got you.
That makes sense.
I noticed the stadium was 19,000. I don't suppose it was ever full, was it?
No, never full like that.
No.
They did sort of have fans there, and they did have fairly decent crowds, but never 19,000. You're more looking at sort of 2,000, 3,000 sort of there. And then away games can be very varied as well, depending on where you go in the country, because you pretty much fly everywhere in the country as well to get to a game.
Oh, do you?
Yeah.
Well, I was really fascinated when I read that. I thought, fair play to Jay. I mean, going to Vietnam to do your management, I'm guessing you come away with quite a few really good learning experiences from that. Not just football, but culture, as you say, cuisine, all sorts of things. Dealing with the heat.
The heat's a big thing, which is why when they pick the foreign players, they normally tend to get guys from sort of African sort of countries, or maybe like Australia and stuff like that, rather than Europeans, especially from England, because it takes them too long to acclimatise to the heat out there.
Right.
So that's a big factor, and you do acclimatise to it, but it does hit you hard when you're first sort of out there, especially my sort of complexion as well. I have to go red to go sort of off shade of white first.
Get in the shade, Jay.
But it was a massive life experience. It was a good one. It was a hard choice leaving family at the time, but the way it worked out with family is sort of every 2 months I saw them. So I'd come back home for a week. Then we'd have a mid-season break for about a month. So I got it in my contract that I got to fly Sam and Kian out to me as well, and we had a little bit of fun travelling around and got to see some places. And then obviously another 2 months to the end of the season, and obviously went home after that. I did get offered another year out there as well, but it's quite strange. The contracts out there aren't like the contracts you would get over here within the Football League. They can give you sort of like, even though I'd have a year contract, they can give you sort of a month's notice and pay you out a month, not the year sort of thing. So we would have had to give them a lot up at home to stay that other year, even though I'd had confidence in ourselves, and the money is very good over there, and getting tax-free money when you're there as well, which is great. But it was a big commitment to sort of upheave everyone over, especially as Kian was going to school age at the time.
Right.
So we'd have had to put him into international school there as well.
Got you.
So we weighed up the options and decided to come back home.
Yeah. Well, thanks for that, Jam. Hopefully the people that are listening would be interested in that as well. I'm a traveller myself, so anybody sort of like doing that sort of thing, it's just quite fascinating. Anyway, we'll go on to the current season if you want to, Jack.
Yeah, just again, just something that I'm really interested in. Obviously, you sort of mentioned there when we were talking about it that when you were at South Park, you were quite interested in coming to Burgess Hill first time around as manager, and obviously we've spoken about your history with Sussex, and obviously you know, I know you're from sort of the area, and obviously now in mid Sussex yourself, so it's quite a nice fit. But obviously from that, when we spoke about you know how it left the first time round, and you know you said yourself as unfinished business, and obviously a couple of years had passed. How, you know, I know the sort of obvious question is to ask, you know, how easy was it to come back? And everyone always says, oh, I jumped at the chance. But actually for yourself, was that the case? Or was it sort of harder than maybe most people would think because you left the first time around? Maybe you didn't want to, you know, come back and help out? Because let's face it, since you left, in hindsight now, we can say, you know, the couple of managers that we then employed, and so it didn't go as planned. So, you know, at the start of this season, was it, you know, as honest as, you know, I wanted to come back, or was it you actually had to think a little bit more deeply and, you know, actually take a little bit longer than maybe people think?
Two answers to that, maybe. I think deep down, yeah, I wanted to come back, but it wasn't as easy and straightforward as that. No, I'd actually sort of refused the role twice before that. I had a couple of meetings with Gary, and Gary and I go back a long way as well. So it wasn't just a new meet between Gary and myself. Yeah. Our boys are the same age. I've known, you know, Gary since he's been taking sort of under-9s football, and our boys are 18 now. So we've known each other a long time. And we had a couple of meetings with each other. And the first 2 times I was like, no, I'm not really sure. Not sure about this, not sure about that. Then I phoned up David and Vicky as well, the new owners, which obviously 50-50 at the time as well, and said, look, I've been asked this from Gary to come in. These are my reservations of it and the reasons why. And they settled any sort of nerves and said, no, if Gary wants you in and he thinks that's how it's going to work going forward, then we're back at 100%. And then obviously go back, more discussions with the wife and my boy as well, because he's obviously old enough to voice an opinion on it as well. And come to the conclusion that, okay, sod it, let's give it a go again. And so, it wasn't straightforward at the start. I did have sort of like, no, stop that, I'm not going back. But part of me knew I wanted to go back. So it was those two demons sort of going against each other. And I'm glad I did now.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
You know,
yeah.
just obviously to finish on this season, I know you've got to sort of get off and do the pre-match before today, but just very quickly, obviously the last couple of games, I want to just sort of end this on, coming off here, we had the sort of win last week against Deal, and to give context, Deal, I think coming to is the most informed team in the league. I think they'd won 4 or 5 in a row, scored almost 20 goals out of that spell, and we come in last Saturday and played brilliantly. I think it was one of the performances of the season, won 4-0, and then that sort of stemmed into the Good Friday fixture, didn't it? We went to Sittingbourne, who, maybe we might see him later down the line in a couple of weeks. Maybe you never know. But that was a good sort of test. I think everyone going into the club, sort of fans wise, was sort of a little bit apprehensive about playing Sittingbourne. They've obviously had an unbelievable season. I think the fans always say it, 9 times out of 10, Sittingbourne would win this league with how good they've been this season. So, just obviously from yourself and manager's point of view, obviously a tremendous season we've had so far, but obviously looking towards the end of the season, everyone always wants to be successful, and of course this club was always in and around the playoffs. But is this really sort of how you thought this season would go? Did you think we'd be up there sort of top 3, or has it perhaps come a bit earlier than you expected? Does it sort of surprise yourself a little bit with how good it's been this year?
Obviously we've had a very, very good season, and Gary and I will always sit down at the start of a season and sort of talk about how we want, or what we want to achieve for this season. And obviously with David, Vicky and Vince at the time as well, we sat down and they sort of voiced where they kind of wanted to be. And then first of all, their remit was, we need to be better than we were last year. So if we finish higher than where we finished last year, then we'd be happy with that. So I do have to say, there's been no pressure on us to say, look, you've got to go and win the league, which is quite nice. But the only pressure we put is what we put upon ourselves, because we know if we come into a job, we want to do a job properly. So I think even from the beginning, the way we set out about our recruitment was very different. Again, I've learned a lot over the years. I used to go for like a profile of a player, just a profile, solely on profile. Would it fit into our system? Can I go and get the player that would suit us? I have done that in the past, but what I sort of underestimated was also the character of the player as well. And if I can get the character right and the profile right of the player, then it fits one for a dressing room that really like each other and get on with each other and run through brick walls for each other and enjoy each other's company outside of football. And the profile obviously fits into our philosophy, Gary and I, the way we want to play and, the formation that we want to play. So when we started doing our recruitment and the players that we were talking to, and it was difficult to start with because we weren't so attractive as we are kind of now, because the last couple of seasons have sort of scraped around sort of the relegation sort of end of the table. And so when you're trying to sell your dream to a player, it's like, well, is it the dream, or are you just saying that because you want us to feel good about coming and joining us? But in the end, we've done really good presentations. We had some really good meetings. We showed the guys around the club. They met everyone sort of here. And also, I need to say this as well, is when we're selling the club to a player, we sell it as the atmosphere of the place. So what the fans bring, we get good attendances. They make a lot of noise, and people like playing within an atmosphere. So it's a really good selling point for us as well when we're trying to attract a player into the club. And when we put the whole lot together, the package together, we managed to get 1 or 2 through the door. And then when you get 1 or 2 good ones, and then you announce them ones, the conveyor belt starts going as well. So then I go, well, if he's signed there must mean business. Or if he's gone there must mean business. Or he's a good player. Okay, I fancy a bit of that. And they kind of know me as a manager. Know Gary's a sort of a new manager coming into it as well. And some of them had a taste from him last year and me previously as well. And went, okay, we'll gamble it and we'll go for it. And when we got them together and when we started doing pre-season, we kind of knew we had a good group. How good a season they were going to go for, we didn't know at the time. But our ambition was to get ourselves in and around the playoffs. So whether that's from 8th position up to sort of realistically sort of 3rd, 4th position, that's what we aimed for at the time. Now we happen to be in 3rd, and I think we're good for our money being in 3rd at the moment as well.
Definitely.
Absolutely.
I mean, I'd just like to say that obviously I've been doing this about a dozen years here at the club, and I felt that first half performance against Deal was probably the best performance since Sutton United away in the FA Cup. It was perfect. Yeah,
I'd say that was probably our most complete performance, especially in that half. The way we defended, but also the way we broke out and attacked, and the style of football we played it in as well was we were very pleased, and it showed it because Deal were a good side, and they score. I think they're the 4th highest goal scorers in their league.
Yeah,
exactly.
And we shut up shop, which was great, but we probably created more opportunities than we actually did score again. So yeah, it was good day at the office. In the second half, they adjusted their shape and went 5 at the back and sort of tried to see the game out with sort of damage limitation. Really.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that in the most respectful way because they are a good side. So it just shows how good we were that first half.
Exactly. Well, I think it's time to wrap this up. Lyndon, do you want to say anything?
No, I'll leave it to the experts.
Experts.
Lyndon, you were going to...
You two, then.
Lyndon, you were going to ask Jay a question about ducks.
Oh, would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck?
100 duck-sized horses.
Yeah, I agree. That's the level of intelligence and football knowledge I bring to this podcast.
There you go. That's the first bit of fun we've had in this particular podcast. But I hope
I'm amazed you let me have a microphone, to be honest.
I really hope that when this goes out and people are listening, they've really enjoyed real good insights there into Jay and his career and how he feels about Burgess Hill at the moment. Today it's Three Bridges at home at 3 o'clock. We're really looking forward to that match. Then we go to Littlehampton next week for the last league game of the season, and then we're into the playoffs, and we'll talk about that another time. It's very exciting. But for now, thank you very much for listening. Jack, do you have anything to finalise with?
Come on, you Hill.
And Jay, final word?
Just really appreciate you having me on, and I think I'm your first guest on here, so that's quite nice to be the first on there. And obviously, I'm looking forward to today's game. So thank you very much for everything for you guys all season as well.
Thank you,
brilliant.
And Hassocks are 3-0 up, by the way.
Is it really?
Cheers, guys.
Woohoo!